if there is one human being in the world who I have been desperate to talk to about with Love Meghan, it is Lady Colin Campbell. Because she is, of course, one of the UK's greatest entertainers. And I purposefully, Lady C, have avoided texting you, calling you about this because I want to hear your reaction live. Go. What do you make of it?
Well, Dan, it's been literally, where I'm concerned, sick-making. So, because yesterday I started looking at it perfectly healthily, and then I kept on struggling to stay awake and this was in the afternoon, because I had to look at all 8 hours. I mean, talk about a waste of 8 hours of your life. But anyway, I had to, I started to struggle to stay awake. And then I thought, oh, well, I'd better, try to do something else. But I forced myself to look at all of it. And in the last 3 or so episodes, I kept on sneezing since when I have come down with the most rotten cold you could imagine. My nose is streaming like a faucet because I totally ignored my body's message, which was escape from that triviality. It was so boring. And pretentious. I mean, I couldn't agree with Variety more. I mean, actually, I don't think there's been one positive review of the show. Meghan is so narcissistic. She is, and like most true narcissists, she's boring, because she really expects everybody to worship at her altar, as she elevates trivialities, according to her, but she actually sinks them to new depths.
All right, folks. If you thought Meghan Markle's PR stunts couldn't get any worse, think again. Because with Love, Meghan has officially been declared unwatchable by none other than Lady Colin Campbell. You heard that right. The show was so bad Lady C says she actually came down with a cold. I mean, how does a lifestyle series make you physically ill? That's how dreadful this was. And let's be honest, who actually thought this would be entertaining? Meghan wants to be the next Martha Stewart or Oprah, but let's be real. Watching paint dry is more exciting than this. Not a single positive review. 0. That's how bad this is. Even Netflix must be sweating right now, because let's be real, they threw millions at this and got a glorified infomercial.
And, I mean, has the woman actually ever entertained anybody? Has she ever had a house guest? The way she went on and on and on and on and on and on about preparing truffle flavored popcorn. And I mean, the triviality. I mean, you've stayed with me. You know what is involved with a big house party. I mean, can you imagine if I diverted my time away from the important things that entertaining requiring a good hostess needs to do? She needs to have her priorities straight. It needs to be the people, the conversation, what's of interest. Then you get on to the food and the drink and who's going to be placed with whom. Yeah, I mean, look at it, for instance. Balloons are the end in tackiness. I mean, the woman is so, I hate the word common, but Nikki Haslam and Princess Michael are always using it. And by and large, I don't like it. But I have to say, in this instance, she talks about elevation. She has sunk commonness to new depths. I mean, it's beyond belief. Has she ever really entertained anybody? I mean, the palaver she made out of having Daniel Martin to stay. And also, which person who's genuinely going to be having a television show that is of genuine interest is going to have the hired help as guests? Let's remember, Daniel Martin, and no disrespect to him, but he is an
He's on the payroll.
Yeah. he's hired help.
He's the
I mean,
subservient gay best friend, Lady C, and we know what those types are like when they're on the payroll. They're there to say, everything you are doing is brilliant and you look beautiful and the Ozempic's working and the Botox is working, and that's why she wants him around. Now, you talk about manners, Lady C. I mean, number one, you're completely right. Going to a Lady C dinner party or an event at Goring Castle Goring is really quite something. But I did not want to be at any of these Meghan parties. It was a miserable experience. You had to stand around. She didn't really look after you. But also, she was just a little bit gross. Look at the moment when her and Daniel start chowing down the pasta.
That's so good. Oh my god.
It's so good. It's your choice of adjectives that I really appreciate.
It's so weird because it's so hearty, but it's not heavy. This is literally cozy.
It's like that Beyonce song.
Yeah.
Cozy. Okay.
And Meghan's mole posted about that, Lady C. I've seen animals have better manners and eating etiquette.
Well, absolutely. But you know what I found horrifying was in one of the later episodes with Roy Choi, when she tastes something with a teaspoon and hands it to one of the cameramen called Brooklyn, and you know, no question of using another teaspoon. I mean, no wonder she thought that Catherine was that there was something wrong with Catherine. If she's busy passing her mouth water to a cameraman and thinks that he should be honored that he's swallowing her saliva along with everything else. No wonder she thought that Catherine was so uppity and off, because Catherine didn't want to share her germs with Meghan. I mean...
Okay, so let's talk about Meghan's idea of being a hostess. Because according to her, throwing a dinner party is some revolutionary, groundbreaking feat. Yes, folks, you heard it right. Truffle. Flavored. Popcorn. This is what Meghan thinks will elevate a dinner party to legendary status. I mean, has this woman ever actually hosted a real event? Because any decent hostess knows that it's about the people, the atmosphere, the experience, not whether your popcorn is flavored correctly. She even made a huge deal about having her makeup artist, Daniel Martin, stay over. Like, isn't this the guy who's been traveling with her for years? Why is this being presented like she's hosting royalty?
And, well, indeed, although Meghan used none of these so-called hosting abilities during her time with Catherine. Remember, they were boasting about how the fact that she turned up bare feet, etc., etc. The other thing is, Lady C, all of these ideas were either crap or just ridiculous. So Quick Cues has gone viral for posting, I'm so glad Meghan Markle has a new show on Netflix where I can watch her take pretzels out of a labelled bag and put them into a new bag, then label it the People's Martha Stewart. And if you look at this moment, Lady C, that is exactly what happens.
All of our energy into making those. This, we're just gonna put into a different bag. Peanut butter pretzels. I've been eating these forever and I love these so much. My mom does too. I know that Daniel loves peanut butter. I'm still gonna label this. You always want to be conscious if someone has a nut allergy.
I mean, what did you think?
Well, Dan, what I would rarely say would sound so snobbish that I dare not say it.
Go on. We forgive you already.
You're encouraging me to be bad.
Always.
No, it's an 18-year-old servant girl on her first job who's cutting corners and expecting credit where none is due. And except she's doing it as a 40-something-year-old woman. And it's everything is so pretentious. you know, the labeling of things, uh, I mean, who ever heard of people are supposed to, civilized people are supposed to know what they're eating. They don't have to be told. They don't have to be educated. I mean, everybody knows what a pretzel is. But also, did you notice that she's often barefooted in the
Yes.
scene? She's often barefooted. I think she missed on every single turn. I don't think there was one turn that I thought, oh, she's done something that's right or elegant. She is a study in inelegance and pretentiousness, passing itself off. I would imagine the only people who would regard her as worthy of being emulated would be people who are so totally oh, look at that. I mean, who ever heard of ice cubes with flowers in them?
You didn't like that?
What?
You didn't like that idea? You're not going to be trying that out at your next party at Castle Goring?
Well, darling, you know as well as I do that the beauty of elegance is to know when to be plain and when to be simple and when to be grand and jazzy. And you'd certainly, I mean, if any house I had ever been into in my 75 years had handed me a glass with an ice cube with a flower in the middle of it, I would have been absolutely horrified. And that is the end in lack of elegance. She doesn't understand the difference between pretentiousness and elegance. She thinks if it's pretentious, it's elegant. She just doesn't understand it. And she was perfectly, when she was in the royal family, and living over here, she went to great lengths to antagonize and alienate Harry's friends and Harry's relations. And I can see why partly she did it, because she is such an inadequate. And she knows on some level she's an inadequate, but she wants to be regarded as somebody who is a superior being.
Lady C nails IT. Because this is what happens when someone with zero real-world hospitality experience tries to act like a lifestyle guru. Meghan doesn't host parties, she stages PR events. And if you thought it couldn't get worse, let's talk about the balloons. Lady Colin Campbell did not hold back. She said, and I quote, "She has sunk commonness to new depths." And honestly, she's right. This woman talks about elevating experiences, but she's out here decorating like it's a 5-year-old's birthday party. Balloons, Meghan? Really? People online are dragging this show for making a big deal out of the most basic, boring Pinterest-level nonsense.
But you can't be a superior being if you have inferior knowledge. And I mean, I suppose this is supposed to be a lifestyle program, but she doesn't teach people how to cook. She doesn't teach people how to do anything. I mean, nothing meaningful that a hostess would do. And I think it's supposed to be about entertaining, but it's all about what the hired help would do. And then she's acting as if the hostess should be doing that. I mean, you delegate, I just can't. Okay, it's pretty, but I mean, if you have a member of your staff doing that, fine. But you'd have to have all the time in the world and be totally idle to want to do that yourself. And I mean, as for those balloons, I mean, give me a break. I mean, talk about inelegant,
These were the pictures she chose to post on Instagram overnight, her favourites from the series. And Lady C, the first reviews are in. As you rightly point out, even the likes of Variety, even her woke Hollywood friends are saying this is utterly dire. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 33% rating from the critics, but crucially, just 12% from viewers. You'll see the front page of the British newspapers today absolutely slamming the series, quite rightly. However, let's bring in the propagandist, Chris Shipp, the royal editor for ITV News. He says the TV critics might have given it mixed reviews. No, they weren't mixed, Chris. They were universally terrible, and you're a journalist that is meant to report the facts. So why are you saying they're mixed reviews? They were dire reviews. I know she's your friend. I know she's Tom Bradby's friend, but you've got to be honest. However, he then went on to say, but the Duchess of Sussex's series With Love, Meghan is currently rated at number 6 in Netflix UK's most watched shows. And this does seem to be part of the trend towards hate watching, which the Daily Mail has spoken about as a phenomenon. However, Lady C, I did find one positive review. I found one positive review in the entire world, and I found it on X. And guess who it was from? Britain's race beta-in-chief, Dr. Scholler. So let me read what she had to say, Lady C, and then I'd love you to respond to her points. So she writes, wholesome, down-to-earth, unpretentious, fun-loving realness. Everything the royal family isn't. Meghan Markle is a natural and shines through. You don't have to like her to like the show, and you don't have to like the show because you like her. But if you're bitching about the show just because it's Meghan, you're petty and vindictive, and thanks for binge watching it. Lady C, your response to Dr. Scholler.
Well, I'm obviously a racist because I thought that it was dire. And I thought that Meghan had nothing to teach anybody, that what she was making much ado about was what you would have told your new maid to get through to cut all corners so that you could get onto the important things. Meghan has elevated trivia to a level that would actually preclude the possibility, without loads of staff who are busy doing actually all of the preparations, to actually produce anything. Because let's not forget, Meghan hasn't produced all of this. This has been produced by people behind the scenes. She's just stepped in, and for Shola to be saying that it's not pretentious, I mean, it's the end in pretentiousness. And Shola ought to know better than that, because isn't she the daughter of a Nigerian prince and a multimillionaire? And so she'd be well used to staff.
Lady C absolutely roasted her, basically asking, has Meghan ever hosted a real event, or is this just for show? And honestly, we already know the answer. And now let's talk about the biggest question. Will Netflix regret giving Meghan this show? Because right now the backlash is brutal. Variety called it shallow, uninspired, and painfully self-indulgent. And honestly, that's still too generous. People are turning it off within minutes because it's that bad.
Very good point. Very good point, Lady C. Now, there was a lot of speculation yesterday over whether Meghan is telling the truth about the fact that she is now no longer Meghan Markle. She is Meghan Sussex. And this was, I think, one of the most fascinating episodes in the series for all the wrong reasons, because Lady Colin, who's the most famous person Meghan was able to get to show up, was doing her damnedest to appease Meghan, to be nice to Meghan, to tell Meghan she was beautiful. Look at the look that Mindy shoots her when Meghan slaps her down for calling her Meghan Markle. Watch this.
Meghan, I want to ask about your look.
My who?
Your look. Your look, Meghan.
Oh, my Luke.
Your look. Did I not say it right?
I don't know. I mean, like, you're way cooler than I am. I don't know what you're talking. My Luke. My
Yes.
look. She likes my Luke.
Your look.
Oh my gosh.
Your fashion is like one of my favorite things.
Well, that was actually a different moment, Lady C, but
No, but
equally
let's speak about
appalling.
that. Let's speak about that, because I think it's absolutely appalling. Again, it shows that Meghan not only has no manners and no humanity, but she is an appalling hostess, because you do not correct your guests unless, of course, if it were a situation with somebody who's very well known to you and they're a foreigner and they said something that they would want you to correct. But you certainly don't embarrass somebody because because remember, Mindy Kaling or Colin, whatever her name is Indian, and so how dare Meghan be making fun of her accent? I mean, it's the absolute end in poor form under any circumstances. And to do it as a hostess shows a total lack of breeding and consideration and heart. I was appalled when she did it. And I was even more appalled that Meghan is so out of touch with the realities of life that she, as the executive producer, would have allowed this to remain in, because that is something that should have been cut immediately.
And it makes her look terrible. It makes her look terrible. And what's so funny, Lady C, is that, as you point out, if it was a white person doing it, Meghan would be the first to be saying, that's racist. But I think Meghan has a real problem with Mindy Kaling. I mean, she admitted that they weren't actually real friends. They'd only met once before to film the Archetypes podcast and then had become pen pals. And again, why on earth did she leave in this scene where you see the real Meghan, the bully Meghan, come to the fore when Mindy Kaling calls her Meghan Markle? And it's very clear there's nothing funny about it in her head, is there, Lady C? She's furious.
Even Meghan's hardcore fans can't pretend this is good. It's embarrassing. And if Lady C, someone who loves royal drama, could barely make it through 8 hours, that tells you everything you need to know.
Well, again, it's so vulgar and common. And also Meghan makes 1 or 2 points, some of which are valid, some of which are invalid, because most members of the aristocracy, they do not have the same names. For instance, I will use my father-in-law as an example. My father-in-law was the Duke of Argyll. His elder son, because he only had 2, his elder son was the Marquis of Lorne. So you had Ian Argyll, Ian Lorne, then you had Colin, who was Colin Campbell, and you had their sister, who was Jeannie Campbell. So in that, with just the 4 of them, you had 3 different names. So Meghan making the point that they're all now Sussex is pretentious and it's ludicrous, and it doesn't make sense in terms. She's trying to make the point that she doesn't like being called Meghan Markle because she is correctly Meghan Sussex, and to that extent she's right. She is Meghan Sussex. I know that people go on and they don't know what they're talking about when they say she is Meghan Windsor, Duchess of Sussex. She's not. She's Meghan Sussex. She's Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Duchess of Sussex is the surname, and for shortened, for instance, my late stepmother-in-law, the one that they did that program on, A Very British Scandal, she was Margaret Argyll, Margaret Duchess of Argyll. And in everywhere nowadays says she was Margaret Campbell, Duchess of Argyll. She wasn't. She was Margaret, Duchess of Argyll. Meghan is the Duchess of Sussex, and she is socially known as Meghan Sussex.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you just explain, though, Lady C, why on the birth certificates of Archie and Lilibet, their last name is Mountbatten Windsor?
Because when they were born, they were the great-grandchildren of the monarch, and being the great-grandchildren of the monarch, they did not qualify for royal status, nor did they actually have anything but courtesy titles. So they have moved up a generation, and that means that they are now officially known as Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet of Sussex. But prior to the late Queen's death, they were known as Master Archie Mountbatten Windsor and Miss Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor. That's what they were known as. But once, and so because they were actually technically not really royal, because they were not princes. The royalty stops with the grandchildren of the monarch. The great-grandchildren of the monarch are not technically royal. So, but now that their grandfather is king and they are recognized as legitimate, irrespective of any questions that might arise as to their provenance, they are royal and they become Prince Archie of Sussex and Princess Lilibet of Sussex, in much the same way that Harry was born. From birth, he was Prince Henry of Wales. But because the Prince Henry of Wales was an honorific, it was a courtesy title. A courtesy title is not the same thing as a surname except socially. So he was Prince Henry Windsor was his surname, and his courtesy title was Prince Henry of Sussex.
Okay, that makes sense.
The real question now is, will Netflix even renew this disaster? Because they can't afford another Meghan and Harry flop. If with love Meghan tanks, her Hollywood dream is over. So here's the big question. Is this the final proof that Meghan Markle has no star power? Because let's be honest, if Netflix can't even make her interesting, who can?
Interestingly, Lady C, or perhaps not surprisingly, the people of Sussex are not so happy about this name change or this name claim from Meghan. Piers Morgan has said today, as someone who grew up in Sussex and still has a house there, I can say with some certainty that you could interview 100,000 random people from every town and village in the county and not find anyone who has ever seen her there. And we'd like to keep it that way. Do the people of Sussex have a right to be a little bit annoyed?
Well, I think Piers is right. I mean, you know, I live in Sussex as well as you know. And I'm yet to run across anybody who thought that either Meghan or Harry was a credit to Sussex, and they don't really like the fact that they have the name, but they have the name, and that's, you know, we've got to live with it. But she, I hate to disappoint people, but she's right when she says that she is Meghan Sussex.
I knew you were the woman I had to ask about this, Lady C, because it is complicated. It is complicated, but okay, if you're coming down on her side, then we trust you on that. Now, something that I've found really interesting, Lady C, is that Grazia magazine, for example, which is massively in the camp of Meghan Markle, has tried to link this series to the rise of the trad wife, the traditional wife. And this is something that is very much connected to the Republican Party and the MAGA movement in the US. But Meghan Markle used this interview in People magazine. Now, I say interview, I mean, really, it was a piece of PR propaganda that Goebbels would have been proud of. But okay, let's call it an interview. She used that interview to say she doesn't embrace the whole trad wife thing because she views herself not as an influencer, but an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. Mixed messaging, isn't it?
Well, as with everything with her, it's claptrap. None of it makes sense. You know, it's if she actually said, which would have been more meritorious as opposed to meretricious, that you know, she embraces those aspects of traditionalism that suit her. But remember, this is a woman who went to great lengths to, when she was in the royal family, to be constantly making the point that she did not agree with traditionalism, and that she thought traditionalism was something to be avoided at all costs, and that, you know, she was anything but traditional, except when it suits her, she's busy playing the traditional role, which is what she's doing now. But I mean, she's not even playing the role of traditional hostess. She's playing the role of traditional sous chef, because, as I said before, her activities in the kitchen are not those of a hostess. They are those of a sous chef, not even a proper chef. And I mean, half the things that she did in that kitchen, I think they don't make sense to anybody who knows about entertaining, or indeed anybody who knows about cooking or about television. So I mean, who is she catering to? Because she doesn't really give recipes. So who's going to be able to cook the things that she does, and also who wants to cook the things that she does? And it's as with everything with her, it's a bugger's muddle, because none of it really makes sense. And it only makes sense in light of the fact that you would regard Meghan, that you, if you regard Meghan Markle as the Delphic oracle, and that you are going to, every word that drops out of her mouth is a pearl that you will regard as equally valuable as she does, then there's interest. Otherwise, there really is no interest. I mean, how did you cope with it?
At this point, Meghan's Hollywood dreams are fading fast. With Love, Meghan flops. Netflix might never work with her again. And honestly, would anyone be surprised? Because if Meghan was hoping this would make her the next Gwyneth Paltrow or Oprah, it's doing the exact opposite. People don't care, they're not watching, and they're over the Meghan Markle show.
I mean, it's an awful long time.
It was really hard. I'm not going to lie, because also, Lady C, unlike you, I'm a useless cook. I'm a useless entertainer, but I still didn't see anything and think, oh God, I want to do this, or it didn't make me interested in any of that type of thing. And I guess my overwhelming feeling was just why this doesn't work is when you watch a show like this, it's meant to be aspirational. You'll want to be part of this person's gang or be in their life. And what I saw from the other guests, Lady C, was either misery or fear. I never actually saw someone who was having a genuine good time. Yeah, like look at this, for example, with Nachos's wife, Delphi. I think she's terrified of Meghan. It's almost like I have been brought in to show that Meghan is a normal human being. We're going to dance during the hike, even though we have no music being played. And then at the end, I'm going to say, this is so great, Meghan. People get to see the real you. I actually saw no genuine sense of camaraderie between those two women at all. Did you?
Well, you need to remember that Nacho Figueras is basically, he's a friend of Harry's.
Harry, yeah.
But also to a large extent, his raison d'etre and his ability to earn a good living relies upon polo, which without the royal link becomes immaterial. So there's a strong financial element to all of this. There's also the social element, because people who, you will know, Dan, that an awful lot of people who really don't like a certain royal will nevertheless mix with him or her because it suits them and it reflects well upon them, and it gives them kudos that they wouldn't otherwise have. So there's often a self-serving, not particularly sincere element to it. Now, I'm not saying that that's totally the case here, because I do understand that Nacho Figueras does genuinely like Harry, and he's married to this girl, Delphi, and she, she's a good, loyal, devoted wife. She's actually the daughter of a very rich Argentinian herself. But, you know, if they are not a part of the Sussex set, they lose a lot of kudos because there's no other royal around them, and they don't have a grand enough or a well-established enough or a big enough name socially to stand on their own 2 feet, on their own merits. So, I mean, we're now getting into the dynamics of social life at the absolute top level of the world internationally. But I can tell you, I know as a fact that when Harry was doing polo, he approached various other royals, some reigning, some not reigning, but all frightfully grand with palaces, etc., who are terribly into polo. And they absolutely refused point blank to receive either Harry or Nacho Figueras. So Nacho Figueras must know this, and he will have to know that any day he loses that connection with Harry, he's just going to be yet another Argentine polo player. And there are many of them. So I make that point for what it's worth.
So, is this the beginning of the end for her Hollywood career? Alright folks, that's it for today's reaction. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more commentary, and let's get the conversation going. Did With Love Meghan destroy her Netflix career? Should they cancel it before it gets worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.